Everybody seems very bright and cheery. It must have been a good day. We're glad that you're here with us. I know it's the end of your work day. It's so important to have you in the room with us and here to take part in this process. We're here with Ms. Felisha Gould, who comes to us from Cleveland Heights University Heights, just right up the road. And so this process is going to be the same as what we did yesterday. We're going to give Ms. Gould an opportunity to share her presentation on her vision of leadership for Akron Public Schools. So that'll be the first part of it. And then we're going to go to the questions. And I warn you, they have some real good questions. So
I wouldn't expect anything else.
So it is so good. Before we get started, I want to take too much time with this part of it, but just raise your hands high if you work with the elementary age students. All right.
That must be
right.
That must be Mary.
How about middle school? Okay, good, good. High school. Nice. We got it looks like a pretty even split. Administration. Are you building level administration? Very good. How about central office? Okay, good. You're here as well. Excellent. So we've got a nice representation in the room across the district. So I am going to now turn it over to Ms. Gould, and we'll let you do your thing.
Testing. Can you hear me? Okay, wonderful, wonderful. First of all, I want to start with thank you. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I know it's been a long day, and I'm here to share my vision in regards to Akron Public Schools. I definitely have thanked the board for the opportunity to be here again, for being in this final round. My day has been a whirlwind, an exciting whirlwind. Started this morning with the forum and had the awesome opportunity to, I call it Little Bookle, go over to the middle school and the high school and meet with students and just had the opportunity to really engage with them and gather a wealth of information. Children keep it real, always. So thank you for being here. Unfortunately, we all have to wear this mask. And I want you to know that my excitement is really illuminating. I'm really smiling behind here, so just look at my eyes and know that these are smiling eyes as you can see them. So I want to take the opportunity here. What you can do is that you can scan my presentation. So if you want to take the opportunity to go back and look later, as you are filling out the feedback form, you'll actually have the presentation with you. I also first want to take this slide because it has thank you on it. I want to thank each and every one of you who are in this room. On March 13th last school year, we all walked out of our buildings, classrooms, offices, and we, like me, I thought that we would return back in 3 weeks. I left most of my materials in my office, never thinking to pick anything up. March 31st came, left, and a year or so later, we were still in a pandemic and we're still coming from it now. I want to personally thank you for how you stepped completely outside of the box. And something that happened to you, you stepped up to the plate, you extended yourself, you learned, you built new relationships with students that will be everlasting. To our custodial staff who kept our buildings clean, to our transportation people who continue to transport students, both in the non-public schools and in the public schools, to our food services people who delivered millions and millions of meals to our students and our families, and most especially to our classroom teachers. The work that you did during that time, we would have never, ever have had happen if this pandemic did not happen to us. And so I just want to stop and say thank you for the work that happened during that time. So when we think about the Akron Public Schools and all of the work that is currently happening, I can think of an actual mission that has taken place. And that mission and vision says, an urban school district in which promotes and shows academic achievement for all students, wanting students to excel in and out of the classroom, eliminating barriers causing the academic and opportunity gaps, using equity as a verb to promote endless possibilities, while partnering with the community to create a model wraparound learning and social emotional for others to replicate in the 22nd century. That is where Akron is going with what they have in place right now. So here you have a young lady. And when we think about public schools are for all. Our public schools have produced much of what we, the public and parents, have expected them to. When you look at this young lady, she looks a little familiar. Behind that smile lies an urban public school student with a mother that expects the schools to provide a quality education, a safe environment, and an opportunity to prepare her for college. Despite anyone in her family ever attending college or being able to afford it. Her story is she's from a single parent household and lives below the poverty level. Society and statistics dictate that based on this young lady's story and her socioeconomic, emotional environment predicts that she has a 47.5% chance of attending college and a 61% chance of actually getting a job after college. For the young lady in the photo, what researchers did not dictate or add into their equation is that she doesn't even know she lives below the poverty level. She is surrounded by family, teachers, faith-based leaders, community organizations, and a support system that will instill in her that education is the key that unlocks all opportunities. School unlocked opportunities for this young lady in the photo to be a first-generation college graduate, to attend the University of Akron on a full scholarship, and then to become an environmental specialist. While working as an environmental specialist, this young lady wanted to give back to youth, wanted to give back to her community. She would then volunteer at the Akron Urban League, working along students with similar backgrounds as hers in their reading and their math skills. Little did she know that this opportunity would then open doors for her to pursue a path in education and teach science. We expect the public schools to admit all who come to their doors, and we do. After leaving the classroom and becoming a school leader in central office and several schools with students of similar backgrounds in 3 different communities, the young lady would come to understand that relationships, leading with integrity, being fair, and collaborating with staff, families, and communities would provide a success formula for challenging schools in an arena that lacks resources, funding, and state and federal mandates. We expect schools to provide learning experiences for students for every gender, every race, disabilities, gifted, at risk, and provide an equal educational opportunity no matter what the child's language proficiency, no matter what the parent's income, no matter what their achievement level, and we do. These experiences share with you will shape my core values. The core values that you see here before you, there are a couple. The number one thing is because schools made sure that I was first. That my family made sure that I was first. I was a priority, and that's what our schools do. Understanding that equity does not mean equal, but it is an opportunity for us to unleash and access endless possibilities. As community partners, you show a commitment to bridging the school and the community, and that is what has happened with our college and career academies. People in classrooms, you change lives. Without that 9th grade biology teacher who instilled in me that you can do endless possibilities with this education, and here's how you can unleash it. You are bridging a gap. You are building relationships that are built that unleash the endless potential in students. And with leadership, whether you're on a BOT, a TBT, or executive committee, a steering committee, a task force, a community committee, a PTA council, whatever you are on, the leadership and accountability that comes with that helps toward our success. In school organizations, once you have established your core values, these go into focus areas. And these focus areas, I know as the people who I have in the room are very familiar with focus areas. These focus areas help to align a systemic process that is for success. We know that we must use data to drive our decision-making, whether that be numerical data or soft data, where we're collecting survey responses. Equity and inclusion. Equity, unleashing what is needed, not necessarily meaning equal, but meeting the needs of what needs to happen. Safe learning environments. Our custodial staff play a very key role in this, making sure that our environments are up to par and ready for our students. Instituting those PDIS expectations so that we create what is expected of our students in and out of the classroom. Strategic communication and collaboration. Strategic about what we are definitely sharing with our community about our successes, how we are also gathering that information from our community so that we can guide our practices. Definitely family and community engagement. They're our partners in this process. High quality professional development. Who knew that you were going to need to know really how to do blended learning? Who knew? Fiscal and resource stability, making sure that our resources match our needs and that, again, it's equitable across our schools. This is where many of us will fit into this systemic alignment. Taking the core values and the systemic alignment helps to shape what I call the vision. The 3 R's. The first R is to renew our commitment. The second R is to reimagine learning. The third is to reinvigorate our stakeholders. When we think about renewing our commitment, so why renew our commitment? Dr. David James is retiring at the end of June. He has been serving as superintendent for over 13 years. That's not heard of. Most superintendents in school districts only last between 3 to 5 years. Dr. McWilliams-Woods is also retiring in June. She has been one of the most innovative educational leaders that we have had. So people are sitting at unrest like, oh my. We have new board members. We have college and career academies. We have investment partners that have invested. And there are fears about what we will keep with a new leader and what we want to put in place. On top of all of these changes, the pandemic is still occurring. We still have social and racial injustices that are occurring each day in our communities. And this is why we must renew our commitment. Reimagine learning. Based on the pandemic, if you think about it, from the pandemic, key thing that we've learned is that equity cannot be an afterthought. It must be at the forefront of the things that we do. When we think about the learning that has taken place, we have torn down the classroom walls. We have opened up our classrooms, families have opened up their home. And so now we are reimagining how learning can take place. With engagement, we need to understand that now the schools have to support families. And when I say that, think about all of the meal distributions that have taken place during that time. Think about the supplies that you have given out during that time. And technology, who knew handing a kid a Chromebook, thinking that, okay, we're gonna be one-to-one, but then they don't have access to the internet. And so it created an opportunity gap that many of us didn't even know existed. And with everything that has happened, we now have to look at new measures of success. We are looking at those new measures of success in our advanced 3-in-3 plan, looking at different measures, because we don't have to wait on the state to tell us what is successful. We created this through our portrait of a graduate at both the high school and elementary and soon to come in the middle school. So we are looking at what those new measures are. And one new measure that we all know that we're gonna have to start looking at is how do we measure social and emotional learning? So reimagine learning. In reimagining learning, we know right now that the jobs that we are preparing our kids for in the future must be future jobs. We cannot prepare our kids for jobs that were in the past. Those jobs are gone. When we talk about reinvigorating our stakeholders, why reinvigorate? As education and leaders, the job is important. We have an influence on our families and our students and have the power to change the course of their lives, despite what is occurring in the world, and helping all of our stakeholders to really understand what is your why. So in order to do that, to reinvigorate our stakeholders, here is the entry plan for me as the superintendent. Between April and June, I call it the pre-entry transition. This is where this is where I meet with the current leaders, meeting with Dr. David James, meeting with Dr. McWilliams-Woods, meeting with Ryan Pendleton, meeting with union leadership to talk about what has taken place, what's occurring, what are the new initiatives, who are the key stakeholders, and learning all of that. In the introduction phase, taking personal introductions and to begin to establish relationships with both our internal and our external stakeholders. This is where visiting schools comes into play. This is where meeting with PTA council, city officials, community groups, cabinet leaders to really introduce and start to build the relationships. Key component here is called the listening to understand, referred to as the listening tour. These are intentional meetings held with members of various constituent groups. School board, administration, teachers, support staff, custodial, building and grounds, administration, students, union leadership, and community. During these meetings, an opportunity to create a listen and learn. Begin to capture critical feedback, perceptions, information to develop a picture of both our past and our present reality. Asking key questions such as, what are our strengths? What's working? What are our challenges? What are communication mechanisms that are taking place? And what are some opportunities within the district? Making sense report, gathering all the information from the pre-entry transition, the introductory, as well as the listening, and compiling all of that to actually create the findings for a picture of our present realities in order to help us aspire to a collective vision for the future. And in the end, engaging our stakeholders. Once we have established what those visions are for the future, then we know who to engage in the partnership so that we can move forward. And I want everyone to just have that visual of where you fit in that circle. And those are the intentional meetings that are happening and that listen to learn. I had the opportunity to ask my current members who work for me to describe me as a leader. And I use this quote by Amanda Gorman. It says, while we feel small, separate, and all alone, our people have never been more tightly tethered. The question is not, will we weather what we weather this unknown, but how we will weather the unknown together. This is the word they use to describe my leadership. As a collaborator, this means that this work is not to be done alone. This work will take a collective effort of everyone in this room and out of this room in order to create the vision that needs to happen here. As a collaborator, you get a leader who is going to lead fairly. You get a leader who is going to lead with integrity. You also get a leader that is going to listen and be able to hear what you're saying. You're also going to get a leader that is going to be visible, not just out in the community, in your schools, at your programs, at your athletic events, all of those type of things. A true collaborator. So for that young lady that was in the picture, yes, that was me. The goals for me are to renew the commitment, reimagine the learning, and reinvigorate stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. So now we get to the questions, and I have a lot of them here, so
Okay.
I'm working to cover as many of them as I can and certainly at least get to all of the main points contained in these questions. So I'm going to start with this one. What do you consider to be your greatest contribution to the district you have worked in or are working in now?
The greatest contribution to the district that I'm working in now is that I have helped to create the systemic alignment that I shared with you on the presentation. And in that systemic alignment, I'll talk about what I call our reopening committees. I had the opportunity to facilitate both the elementary and the secondary reopening committee. We started meeting in May of 2020, and we would meet every week until August, right before school opening. On that committee, it was an opportunity to bring together people who normally don't sit at the table together. The educational side had to come together with the business side of the organization. So you have custodial staff, you have secretaries, you have directors, you have HR, you have fiscal, you have transportation, everybody's sitting there together. Having the open dialogue because we're opening up that collaboration on how to move things forward. Having that expertise of someone who works in transportation to talk about what the transportational needs are was eye-opening for many of us who have never sat down and talked to. If you've never talked to someone in transportation, let me tell you, they have a wealth of information. Just sitting down, having that conversation and being able to actually build something out together was key for me. So I'll say that particular thing of creating that systemic alignment, and we've continued to do that. We haven't stopped. And when I say we haven't stopped, it has spilled over into principal update meetings, meeting every Friday with all of those key stakeholders, having 5 minutes to share their updates with principal so that they know exactly what is happening in that department. It has spilled over into monthly principals meetings, where now we take all of the managerial stuff off because you've already got it on Friday, and principals are now able to work together collaboratively around the issues that they are facing as school leaders in a peer-to-peer type environment. For our staff, what it has done for them is created an opportunity for us to have communication that is pertinent around everything that is happening in the organization through a newsletter that we will share with the entire group. So I will say that the key thing I'm proud of is the systemic alignment that has been created and the collaboration.
Thank you. So how important to you are community ideas, family caregiver, parent input into decision-making for the district?
You said family ideas?
Community ideas, family caregiver,
Okay.
parent input?
You know, as I shared before in the pandemic, you know, parents are our partners. And knowing that parents are our partners, we need to be able to hear from them as well. When you're thinking about communication, communication is not something that's always done to you, you're also receiving something. So receiving that feedback from parents is critical to the work that we do. So them being a part of the decision-making process, I would say if they are at the table in your committees that you're having, they have a right in that decision-making process because you've already built and established what the goals are and the expectations are. So if they are sitting at the table, if we're gathering information, yes, they do have a power in the decisions that happen within the school district, because they are sending us their most precious commodity. And that's what we have to remember.
All right, thank you. As superintendent, what is your vision for expanding and encouraging greater participation in academically challenging programs such as advanced placement and IB?
I've actually done some work around advanced placement courses. We have IB currently at the middle school and at elementary. It's not at the high school. But in the advanced placement courses, what needs to take place is this is like a resource. And a resource for students get it, you know, on our college and career path. One of the things that happened where I am currently is that when we would go around to visit classrooms, we would not see minority students in advanced placement courses or in our gifted program. And when I say it was glaring to the point that in a district that's 70 to almost 80% minority, you didn't see maybe 1 or 2 kids in the class. So immediately we knew that we had to take a look at this. We would start by looking at what our data said, looking over the years to see exactly how many years this may have been occurring, the number of students that were enrolled in the classes, the number of students that were actually taking the advanced placement courses, and getting a 3 or higher so that they have that college readiness score. And being involved in a group called Minority Student Achievement Network, it is a group of where about 15 school districts, modern to small sizes, work around research-based practices where they look at social justice and inequities that happen. So during that process, we ended up partnering with a company called Equal Opportunity Schools. Equal Opportunity Schools would provide us with information that would help us to then create a database where we would be able to identify students potentially who could be in advanced placement courses. Potentially identifying them as well as working with our staff on the training that they needed around equities within the classroom. The students would then take on a project, because that's what's supposed to happen from Minority Student Achievement Network. The students took on this social injustice project, and then they began to say that they wanted to help with recruiting. Students would then be in the cafeteria, and literally, they would have a table that was set up, and just like a recruitment, they would be there talking to students about advanced placement courses, getting them to sign up, the whole 9 yards. Also during this time, we would be training teachers on the advanced placement. They would have to attend the actual College Board training if they wanted to teach an advanced placement course. All of this work led to a bridge summer program that came out of this. It led to more work and support that was put in place for students in advanced placement. And I'm happy to say that the work that formalized out of all of it, we were then recognized by the College Board this past year for increasing the number of students who were in advanced placement courses, minority students, as well as students receiving 3 or higher on the exam. So when I think about that particular question, that story comes to my mind and thinking about inequities. That is a way that we could look at increasing the number of students in our advanced placement, as well as doing a needs assessment across our school district to talk about what are the advanced placement courses we're currently offering, where are they being offered at, and what do the students look like that are in the classroom, and how many of those students are actually receiving that 3 or higher on that. From that, we'll take the data, and then we'll move from that to set our goals.
Thank you. Will you visit school buildings frequently? Why or why not?
Oh, that's the question? I
That's
thought it
the
was something else that was- Okay, yes. As a school leader, as a building principal, we all know that one of the key things is you have to be visible. Visibility brings about a relationship. Visibility stops things from happening, especially if you're in schools. And I will continue to do that as the superintendent. I still visit schools and classrooms and read. We're doing a one book, one classroom right now, and we're all reading Hidden Figures. I just went to a classroom and read Hidden Figures and got recorded, all of that. So those things won't change for me as a leader. I've always thought that visibility is important, and I will continue to think that visibility is important, not just in schools, but also in the community.
All right. So how will you work with district leaders, school leaders, and Akron Education Association leadership to improve the instructional effectiveness of our teaching staff?
So right now, I know that there is a committee called the Transformational Committee that happens with the college and career aspects of it. And on that committee is union leadership sitting alongside of administrative leadership. This committee could advance what they do. And when I say advance what they do, right now, I'm not sure if it's limited to just the college and career aspects of it, but it could be a model about how we take a look at all of our instructional practices as well as curriculum, things that are happening. And when I say that, I'm thinking, as far as an equity lens is concerned, you have to do an audit. An audit has to happen across everything. An audit has to happen in curriculum, an audit has to happen in resources, an audit has to happen across the district so that you have that baseline information. But definitely having everyone at the table is always very important. So working with union leadership, the teachers are in the classroom, the paraprofessionals are in the building. So we need to have all of the key stakeholders at the table. We're going to start talking about instructional practices, and we're going to start talking about resources for the classroom. So that's very important because that's that collaboration that you're gonna build.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This is a very specific question.
Okay.
The response to intervention, RTI pyramid, includes core, targeted, and intensive instruction.
Mhm.
How will you address the gap in the continuum of services that occurs in the targeted range, especially struggling students not yet identified for special education, and the majority of our students who have not progressed as usual because of online instruction?
Okay, now that question has a couple of other questions in it, so give me the first part again.
Okay, the first part is about the RTI pyramid,
Mm-hmm.
core, targeted, and intensive instruction. How will you address the gap in the continuum of services that occurs in the targeted range, especially for struggling students not yet identified for special education?
So before we even get to target 2, we have to take a look at what's happening at tier 1. What is happening in that universal tier? What are we offering to all students that they should be able to access? Accessing that information and how is it being delivered? You have a process, I'm not sure if it's still in place, your intervention assistance team. And in that intervention assistance team, there should be a constant conversation that is occurring in that process about the students that are in the building, that you have some concerns about. In that process of having that conversation, before you even get to the intervention assistance team, you have to talk about what has already taken place in terms of an intervention. The intervention assistance team is then there to support you, again, with other resources and other things that can actually take place. When we get to tier 2, or the targeted level that is referred to in the question, the targeted level helps us to understand exactly what is needed for that particular student or child that is being referred there. So an example of that is if students are not reading on grade level, a targeted intervention may be no new instruction time, and that student is then working around phonemic awareness. Just basically on that particular strand, because that may be the deficit of where that student is at that time. So that targeted intervention can happen in the classroom, it can happen outside of the classroom, but you're using your system in order to drive what has to happen in a thematic and thoughtful way. That's the first part of the question. What's the second part of
The
it?
second part asks about sports for students who have not progressed as usual because of online instruction.
Okay. So students that have not progressed because of online instruction, all of the research is telling us right now, if you think about how many times we have had students who have not progressed and then we try to remediate them. What research is telling us right now is that stop trying to remediate. It is telling us to actually start where the student is and continue to move forward. That when we try to remediate, we're not remediating them, we're not catching them up. So for a student who is online, there are several things that could be happening there, and we have to make sure that we really understand what has happened to this student during this online process. Is it access? Is there something else going on in the home? Are the students really not logging in? We have to really make sure that we understand exactly what is going on there before we can actually prescribe something for that student in that online process. Everyone didn't do well in online. There are many students that I have in my college classes that don't do well online. So we have to find a way in order to really make sure that we can access what that student may know or may not know in this environment. This environment is just, right now we're looking at, if you have students who have not done well, we're looking at an extended learning plan. So that extended learning plan then talks about summer. So is this a student that you put in one of the summer programs to then look at helping them or moving forward? I think I answered all of those parts of that question.
All right, thank you.
A couple of different parts there.
Yes. What makes this job interesting to you? Why APS?
Well, that's the $1 million question. I'm gonna be honest with you. 20-some odd years ago, somebody took a chance on that young lady that you saw in that picture. Somebody thought that I would be okay teaching kids in the Akron Public Schools in a classroom. This is where the foundation would be laid for me as an educator in the classroom, and then also as a leader. Being successful in both of those arenas, I was allowed to flourish. I stand on the shoulders of many who have come before me. Even as I stand in this building today, in the Sylvester Small building, who was one of my mentors. So for me, coming back to Akron, it's coming home, because this is where I started. So why APS? Because I want to come home. I want to come home, and I want to work with my family again to progress in the goal areas that have been set. And I know we can do it, and I know we can do it together. So this is really surreal for me to stand up here before you, knowing that I could be the next superintendent.
All right, thank you. What innovative ideas will you bring to APS that will continue us on the path to be the best urban district in the US?
Oh, wow, there's a lot of things I can think of. Innovative ideas, okay, innovative ideas. Taking a look at some of our college and career academies, talking to our students about, which that you would really like to do that you're not seeing doing. Do we take, I would say, let's take a coding program and make it a pathway in order for students to be working with different organizations. A software type of program where students, are creating apps and being able to market those particular apps. And those are things that we can use within our classrooms and in our schools right now. What does our online platform look like now? We've learned that, in an innovative way, that students can now not have to be completely in our classrooms all day. Do we look at students being able to be a half day? Do we look at students being able to come sometimes? Do we use our learning platform to advance students and not remediate them? Those are just some things I can think of right now off the top of my head. Give me a couple more hours, I'll come up with some more.
Okay, we'll come back to that. What social emotional development gaps do you see existing among students, and how would you plan to address them within the district?
So social emotional gaps that we are seeing among students, definitely a lot of trauma has happened within the pandemic. A lot of students lost loved ones. A lot of them are missing basic needs. And a lot of our staff are also going through the same thing. Where I am currently, we have counselors and social workers in our school. So we have worked with them to create what we call a trauma-informed plan. And this trauma-informed plan is based on what we are seeing happening within their particular schools. And we're making sure that we are targeting the services that we provide for our students around this plan. Now, in this plan, we've also added what we will do for staff in this as well. So our staff have been partnered with the persons that are in their school as well. We've gone through training around, here are some resources for staff to be able to use with students to help them through the situations that they're in, as well as staff having a platform to be able to also have that dialogue that they need to have also in this pandemic. This pandemic was done to us. And so collectively together, we have to get through this crisis. So I would definitely say that the number one problems I'm seeing is the trauma that has happened to kids just based on loss of loved ones, and the loss of basic necessities.
Okay. What role do you feel school counselors play in schools, and what are your thoughts on them being full-time or part-time?
That's a loaded question. No,
That's why I asked.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just like I said with our trauma-informed plan, counselors play a key role in that. They play a key role in our college and career academies. They play a key role in what happens with our social and emotional learning. So after a needs assessment is completed and an audit on what is actually taking place at our foundational level or our tier 1, then we assess the needs about what other staff that may be needed as well to help us move forward.
Well, generally, when educators talk about the impact of school culture on academic achievement, it's based on positive democratic interactions with students. A positive, equitable, transparent culture for staff also contributes to academic success for students. How will you build a positive culture for staff as well as students?
I think that I kind of addressed this in the entry plan. Intentional conversations with staff in regards to what are the strengths and challenges, what are the things that, just thinking about communicating, and what are some other things that you are seeing that are happening. Those intentional conversations will lead to me as a superintendent having a true understanding about what our needs are and what are some of the resources that we need to think about in our schools.
How would you plan to improve academic outcomes for students with disabilities at various learning stages, preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school?
Increase academic outcomes for just students with disabilities.
Students with disabilities, yes.
So when we think about students with disabilities, and we're talking about increased outcomes, the number one thing we have to think about is what is happening at tier 1? What happens at that foundational level for all students? We don't just want to have our students with disabilities excelling. We want all of our students to excel. And if at tier 1, our students are not excelling, then it's not just students with disability issue, it's an all student issue. So we have to take a look at what is happening at tier 1. When we take a look at what is happening at tier 1, making sure that there's equal access, equal opportunities there, then I would say for target 2, then we start to look at what are some of the delivery models that we have for our students with disabilities. Are we doing true inclusion where the teachers are actually being able to have that collaborative conversation around what students need and being able to deliver that type of instruction that students need in the classroom? So looking at inclusion, looking at really what is happening at tier 1. Again, we want all students to excel, whether they have a disability or not. And until we fix what happens at tier 1, what we do at tier 2 and tier 3, we're going to continue to do this reciprocal cycle that we're doing. We have to fix what happens at tier 1.
All right. How will you address the inequity among schools in the district? It's an important point from
I
our
know.
focus group surveys.
You know how you turn around and you're like, okay, is there going to be something else to that question?
That's it.
So in addressing the inequities about what happens in our school, and I've talked about this a little bit, looking at a needs assessment, looking at an audit across our schools. What are the resources that we provide for all of our schools? What are the curriculum things that we provide? What is the general fund budget that happens and how is that distributed to all of our schools? We have to do a needs assessment. I've said before that we cannot do a diet. We cannot provide a prescription until we actually know what the diagnosis is. So doing that needs assessment is key.
Okay. What is your transition plan with the superintendent and chief academic officer exiting the organization at the same time?
Talked about this a little bit in the pre-entry So in that pre-entry plan, again, just meeting with, Dr. James and Dr. McWilliams-Woods and, getting that historical context that they both have had of being in leadership for so long, understanding what are the key initiatives that are coming up, understanding, what are who are the community stakeholders, what's happening in schools, what is the next step, as we launch in this advanced, APS 3 and 3. So actually, sitting with them, working with them, I would be coming into the district prior to them leaving and having that opportunity to work alongside of them and learn from them.
Okay. What do you see as the mayor's role being? What kind of decisions will he be making?
What do I see as the mayor's role? Okay. So you have two very important entities. You have look at it from this standpoint, you have two companies that are really running at the same time. The mayor is in control of the city of Akron. The superintendent is the leader for the school district. Those two conglomerates have to work in tandem. They have to work together, because what happens is the school system is producing individuals that will then not only provide back to the community, but may also work in the community. So they have to work hand in hand, but they both run their organizations separately, but coming together in a collective effort.
Okay. This one comes from a teacher who's been the only African-American teacher in building for 8 years, for the past 8 years. And the question is, what is your plan to recruit and retain educators, counselors, and other staff to reflect our learning community?
Well, whoever that teacher is, I've been in that position as well, being the only African-American in the school. I will say, as part of the recruiting process, is that we take a look at what our recruiting strategies are. We take a look at who is sitting at the table when we are talking about recruiting. We take a look at what is the training that is being provided to the staff who is actually going to be recruiting as well. And we have to have a succession plan that happens also. Because even in the recruiting process, we are still going to have some individuals who will exit the organization. So what does our succession plan look like along with the recruiting plan? When you think about this, also, I know that we're looking at increasing the number of minorities from a certain percentage. I would also say that in the recruiting process, one thing we need to look at is also the number of males that are also teaching within our classroom, and especially African-American males that are in our classrooms as well. So again, looking at the recruiting strategies, training for those people that are interviewing, what does the composition of the interview team even look like as well, and also where are we recruiting? Where exactly are we going to recruit minorities? So those are things that we need to really take a look at.
Okay, thank you. So another one that there's major concern in the focus group surveys as the COVID tide rescinds and we begin to return to a sense of normalcy, that's in quotation, education and how we do school will undoubtedly change. What educational and/or social emotional initiatives do you plan to add to your platform to advance an emotionally safe learning environment for APS students and family?
So in the pandemic, we've talked about trauma a little bit here. I will say, looking at the trauma-informed plan, seeing what are the true needs that are occurring in that particular building or in that particular cluster, working with our community to also assist us in this process, because many of our community learning centers, that's what they were set up to do. They were set up to be wraparound services. So we look at expanding what our wraparound services look like for them, and also helping to train, our family liaisons, in a systemic model, that will help understand exactly what our families, and our students are in need of.
Good. And how do the arts fit into your vision for a student's education through APS? What do you feel is necessary and appropriate for elementary, middle, and high school students to take? When should students have multiple options available to them for the arts?
Okay. The arts are very important because they help, not only establish the other side of the kid's brain, but it also brings out that creativity that sometimes students need to unleash. We can look at in our elementary schools, okay, and right now I'm just thinking out of the box. I don't want anybody to get excited about this. But we can take a look at our elementary schools, and I would say, due to what we see happening in our world, we start to offer foreign language in the elementary schools. That's we start to look at maybe some type of rotation in the elementary school where you would have art, foreign language, music, and STEM actually occurring in a rotational basis for students. You could do the same thing in the middle school as well, but also maybe in the upper grades, trying to actually create that pathway of where students can actually start to select where they might want to think about branching off, and then create the pathway, which could be an arts pathway for students who are really interested in pursuing that. So that's kind of my thoughts right now around elementary, middle, and high. But the arts are definitely important in this process of learning.
What ideas do you have to place the responsibility of learning back on students and parents?
So placing the responsibility of learning back on parents, I use a framework currently, and it's called the Epstein Model, and it's by Joyce Epstein. And what Joyce Epstein does is she creates 6 opportunities for parents to be truly a partner in the educational system. And in that, what she talks about is that she provides what parenting needs to look like. So you support parents in the process of them being educated, them being able to access their needs as well. So you could think about GED courses, you could think about college courses on the campus for families as well. The other part of that goes to the learning that takes place at home. It puts into practice exactly schools being able to communicate what happens with the learning that is taking place, like what type of benchmarks, what are kids supposed to know at the end of this particular grade, and making sure that that is really understandable for the parent. It also has a component in it that's where the parents have to volunteer within the schools. They have to volunteer within the schools, understanding what happens within the school on a current basis around learning as well. They then become part of the decision-making process that also happens, but there is also a component in there that really specifically targets homework and how do parents actually help kids with homework. Taking this Epstein model, I have in my current in district, we have taken this model and actually created parent academies. And these parent academies actually happen on a Saturday. We do them twice a year, and we focus the sessions in the academy around the Epstein model. We pick parents up on a school bus and actually make sure that they get there. We provide interpreters so that we can bring our families of those students who speak English as a second language. And we've even had equity conversations in this model as well. So I would take the Epstein model, use that framework to really bridge that gap between parents understanding what role they actually play within our schools.
Thank you. And in our closing minutes here, One last question. This is my chosen final question here. What is the current book you are reading? And how is that adding to how you lead people?
Okay, there's two books that I'm reading along with all these dissertation books that I gotta read. So the one book that I'm reading is called How Women Rise. And if you, for all of the females in the room, sorry guys. It's really a book that really takes practical information about leaders and really how female leaders think and act in an organization versus how male leaders rise in an organization. Really a good book. The other one I'm reading is called Achieving Excellence and Equity. It's by Dr. Doug Reeves. Dr. Doug Reeves and I actually partnered together on a grading task force. And in this book, it looks at equity that is taking place in high poverty, high successful schools. So it's a must read because it gives you vignettes and actual case studies around what these schools have done to promote equity within their school district. So those are kind of the two that I'm reading right now.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. And
Thank
come to
you.
our time together. So appreciate having you here. Appreciate very much having all of you in the room. It's fantastic to see so many of you here and participating in this. Remember, please use the online survey forms to provide your feedback. We're looking forward to that. And yes, we will be back tomorrow with our next candidate. So with that, have a great rest of the day. Enjoy it. I think it's still really sunny and nice out there.
Again, thank you so much.
If you could leave from the middle row first
Closing protocols.
and go on back.